At exactly 15 minutes past 8 in the morning on August 6, 1945, Mrs. Hatsuya Nakamura, a widow, had been watching her 3 small, sleeping children. They had been up most of the night because of the air raid warnings, all of them false. Dr. Terafumi Sasaki, 25 years old, in the city's Red Cross hospital, had just drawn a specimen of blood from the arm of a patient and was on his way up to the 3rd floor lab. There had been an air raid warning half an hour ago, but the radar had detected only 3 planes, obviously a reconnaissance. The planes were approaching, but it seemed safe to let the people go about their business. The planes were coming, but at 8 o'clock they sounded the all clear. A beautiful morning, a clear sky. Now, it is almost exactly 8:15.
Almost nobody remembered hearing it. The flash, though, they remembered, like a sheet of sun.
In a flash, 60% of the homes destroyed completely. In a flash, 100,000 killed. The rest, walking about, bleeding from heads, chests, and backs. Eyebrows gone, burned from their faces. That flash, that second of heat, had cooked the potatoes in the ground.
I ask you, General, if we got into nuclear war now in the 1960s, and our Air Force made an assault with nuclear weapons, what would be the result in the way of death?
Well, Senator, current planning estimates run in the order of several 100 million deaths. That could be either way, depending on which way the wind blew.
We were just beginning to build a decent worldwide world when we demonstrated the absolutely perfect way to destroy it. We never believed it was part of American dream to destroy man, 100,000 in a flash. How did it happen? We're a peaceful people.
A peaceful people, sitting in our living rooms peacefully watching television, where every week, on the average, we see 300 stories of assorted mayhem.
A peaceful people?
Exporting to the world are movies in which all our problems, social, political, and racial, are resolved by the fists of the hero.
Well, that's fiction.
But what about the newspapers, the beatings, muggings, stabbings, shootings?
Well, America's always had its share of violence. Why, out in the Old West, war raged for years. With even the good guys, the vigilantes, a menace, until finally the people had to reject violence to survive. Oh, but on the national level, there, well, if things got too bad, too uncomfortable, no other choice. War.
of the American Friends Service Committee. We feel impelled to speak to our countrymen out of a deep moral concern over present trends toward war. For 300 years, we have opposed tyranny and dictatorship because of their denial of human dignity. Our weapons are those of love, not hate. We reject war as the supreme violation of God's law. With increasing disturbance of soul, we watch the hardening of public opinion and the easy acceptance of the doctrine of force. In the clamor and clash of a hating world, people are forgetting moral values.
There are many ways to take a stand. Some public, some private. Some from reason, some from faith. If we are numb to the language of words, we must speak in the language of faces. Out of hate, we can find love. Out of anguish, we can hope. Out of silence, we can speak.
Whatever the color of their skin, whatever their religious background or creed, the men in CPS ate and worked and slept together, united in their opposition to war and their willingness to stay in civilian public service. These men were systematically starved on a diet of approximately 1,600 calories per day, while their testing and work routines and their daily exercise consumed about 3,000 calories per day. And here on another treadmill, a staff doctor is withdrawing 20 cubic centimeters of blood from the subject's arm after the subject has walked the equivalent of 4 miles.
I'm Don Murray. These men share a conviction with me that war is never the answer to a problem. Because of this conviction, we do not bear arms. Instead, we meet the problem by seeking constructive alternatives to war. We are called pacifists or conscientious objectors. Whether a CO is a non-combatant soldier, a civilian doing work of national importance, or a non-registrant, he bases his stand upon a deep-seated set of convictions that motivate all positive aspects of his life.
Over a century ago, a man in a Massachusetts village had spoken and embarrassed his mother, his Aunt Maria, Mr. Emerson, in fact, the nation. His name was Henry Thoreau.
I was not born to be forced. I will breathe after my own fashion.
He was thrown into jail for refusing to pay his poll tax, which would have helped finance slavery in the Mexican War. The story is that Mr. Emerson, who thought the whole incident was in bad taste, came to the jail and asked,
Henry, why are you here?
and Thoreau answered,
Why are you not here?
The voyage of the Phoenix began here in Hiroshima on March 1st, 1967. Packed in the hold of the 50-foot ketch was 1 ton of medical supplies for the victims of U.S. bombing in North Vietnam. Money for the supplies came exclusively from Americans, unlike earlier direct shipments which had been channeled through Canada and sent on by Canadian Quakers. The voyage had been planned by a Quaker Action Group of Philadelphia, not simply as another protest, but as a vigil, a manifestation of spiritual commitment in the midst of war. The captain and owner of the Phoenix is Earl Reynolds, 56. In 1958, he and his family sailed the Phoenix into the U.S. atomic bomb testing area in Bikini. In 1961 and 63, he sailed to Leningrad and Vladivostok to protest the Russian testing of nuclear weapons. As a research anthropologist, he spent 5 years testing the effects of radiation on the bombed victims of Hiroshima. Betty Boardman spends most of her time working for the American Friends Service Committee, counseling young men of their rights as conscientious objectors under the U.S. draft law. Bob Eaton, 23, is the only member of the crew besides the captain with any sailing experience. He has refused to comply with the U.S. draft and faces a possible prison term on his return to the United States.
I could become a conscientious objector and do 2 years alternative service, but I can't accept that exemption and say, well, as long as the blood's not on my hands, you fellas go out and kill. And I also can't accept the proposition somehow that I'm going to become part of a system, U.S. conscription, which by a very objective definition is slavery. And that any service that I'm going to give to my nation or fellow men, I should decide upon that, and then it's truly service.
On the 4th day out of Hong Kong, we were 40 miles into the Tonkin Gulf, the area most heavily patrolled by the 7th Fleet. If we were to be stopped, it would be here. And for a few moments that day, it looked as though we might be. Nothing happened and we realized we were going to get to Haiphong, it suddenly occurred to each of us that we had never expected to get this far.
I don't think our role is to go there and say you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. Our role is to go there and say we are Americans, but we are fellow human beings, and you are Vietnamese, but you are fellow human beings. We recognize your humanness and errors, and we hope you will recognize our humanness and forgive us our errors. And as a gesture of our friendship and reconciliation, we have this small token gift to give to you.
We refuse to believe there is no alternative. We reject war as the answer. We reject the concept that peace can emerge from an arms race, or that problems can be solved by the dropping of A-bombs. We believe there is another answer.
General Eisenhower, when he was president, he said, "I like to believe that the people want peace so much that one of these days governments are going to have to get out of their way and let them have it."